Hello, and welcome to your favorite bookish podcast, Fully Booked and Caffeinated. I'm Heather.
I'm Kelsey.
And today's episode, we will be discussing The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, a magical realism contemporary novel that will basically have you rethinking your entire life. More or less. You might go through 2 or 3 midlife crises as you read this book.
2 or 3 is a
minimal.
Small estimation. Yeah,
that's
minimal for sure.
Yeah. And then just a few content warnings before we start. There is discussion of suicide and death of pets. I was very upset about the cat. I was like, not the cat.
Mm-hmm. Should have seen that one coming for sure.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, what are you drinking, or what did you have this morning?
Well,
what's your fuel?
Right now I have a Cherry Coke Zero.
Nice.
Of course. And this morning I had just a regular Nespresso coffee, but I put some frothed almond milk on top to make it a little jazzy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting ready to make another order from Nespresso, and I'm waiting for them to drop them pumpkin spice coffees.
Yes, yes.
And they haven't yet, so I'm just waiting patiently.
I'm surprised because Starbucks and Dunkin' are rolling out that pumpkin in a week.
I know. They still have the coconut and pistachio, which were their summer ones this year.
I have not tried pistachio yet in my coffee. I know my mom really liked it at Starbucks, and then Dunkin' had it, and then they replaced it with the mint chocolate chip and the cookie dough for the summer. But I was like, but I don't know that I'm a pistachio girly in general.
Okay, I'm not really, and I've never had it in my coffee, but I did try one of those Dubai chocolates.
Is that pistachio? Is that what's in there?
Yeah, it's crunched up pistachios, and I was like, oh, this is fucking good.
I know, because the Dubai chocolates are this huge trend right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll try it if someone offers me one, but Eric likes pistachios. I'm not really. I've never been a nut girl except for peanut butter. If it's peanut butter, it is for me, and that's about it.
I completely agree. I'm
honey roasted peanuts. Okay,
get in your teeth and stuff.
No, that's why it's I have a big thing with food, certain foods, and chewing them. So nuts is one of them. 100% sure.
All right, so what are you drinking? I see you got a coffee there.
I actually, because I was dragging today, so I got a medium caramel coffee from Dunkin' on my way home, and then this morning I also went to Dunkin', but I got a medium caramel cold brew with cold foam.
Switching it up, but not really.
Yeah, because I was gonna go to Starbucks, but I was like, do I want to have trouble falling asleep tonight? No, so I just got my caramel coffee.
I love it.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
So Matt Haig is an internationally best-selling English author, which I knew it. As soon as I didn't know who this guy was. And as soon as I started reading this book, I was like, oh, he's British. Immediate British vibes. And his work has been translated into over 50 languages. The Midnight Library was an instant bestseller, and it was the winner of the Goodreads Choice Award for Fiction in 2020, the year it came out. And it has become a worldwide phenomenon and has sold over 10 million copies worldwide. And it spent 52 weeks, which is basically a year, on the New York Times bestseller list.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I guess it wasn't, they can't say a year because I'm sure it goes by in 2020, maybe it was only on the list. Right. You know what I mean? And then apparently Carey Mulligan did the audiobook. So I'm a little jealous of whoever listens to this because I love Carey Mulligan.
Yeah.
And she has a nice voice. So I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I just need to listen for a hot second.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading a little bit about his other books because he's written a lot. He has a nice repertoire. He actually wrote a memoir in 2015, which was called Reasons to Stay Alive, which was based on his experiences of living with depression and anxiety. And so I kind of want to read that.
I really want to read that.
Yeah, and it was a number
Wow.
one. It was a number one bestseller and stayed in the British top 10 for 46 weeks.
Wow.
So I think that that's also kind of an accomplishment, being a memoir.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he also wrote an award-winning children's book, A Boy Called Christmas, which was actually made into a film for Netflix in 2021.
How did I not know anything about this man?
Me either. And I'm like, this is the first book I've read by him. Didn't even know, I knew nothing about him. And I was like, oh, he's actually like a super relatable human being.
Yeah, that other one, his memoir sounds really good.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. I think that that's something that I would like to read. So yeah, that's the gist about Matt Haig. Let's hope he's not problematic. I didn't see anything, but we never know with these male authors.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check the TikTok later.
I have to hope that, like, because he deals with depression, anxiety, he's one of us.
I hope so. I mean, he could still be anti-woman, but we'll
see.
We're giving him the benefit of the doubt.
We're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay, so the Midnight Library. The blurb is, between life and death, there is a library. When Nora Seed finds herself in the Midnight Library, she has a chance to make things right. Up until now, her life has been full of misery and regret. She feels she has let everyone down, including herself, but things are about to change. The books in the Midnight Library enable Nora to live as if she had done things differently. With the help of an old friend, she can now undo every one of her regrets as she tries to work out her perfect life. But things aren't always what she imagined they'd be, and soon her choices place the library and herself in extreme danger. Before time runs out, she must answer the ultimate question: what is the best way to live?
This book fucked me up.
Ironically, I didn't cry, which I was kind of surprised.
I didn't either.
It didn't really have the... I will say this book bled more hope than sadness.
Uh-huh.
Like, you think it's going to be super, super sad, but it actually... Like, I think hope is kind of like a theme throughout, that it's underlying. And then... Because I didn't feel, I didn't feel sad as much. Like, I feel like these kind of books make me cry. Like, I think I cried when I read The Measure. And this was giving kind of like Measure vibes. So I was kind of surprised. So Nora Seed, this poor lady, she's living a rough life. Her life is mess with a capital M. Her cat dies. Poor Voltaire. She gets fired from her job. She finds out her brother was in town and he didn't visit her. They hadn't spoken in like 2 years. There's a little bit more about that. And she like sees old people from her life, and it's just all around. She's just having a very negative experience throughout the day. And she's kind of at the point where she decides that she no longer wants to be here. And so she contemplates suicide, and in the end, she writes a suicide note, and she tries or attempts to do like an overdose. And all of a sudden, you're brought into the Midnight Library. I was so confused at first when I got to this. I was like, oh, this is just like okay, we're just going right into it. And she's met by the librarian, who she believes to be Mrs. Elm, who is actually her old school librarian. And Miss Elm explains that the library, and this is actually a pulled quote from the book because I loved it. Between life and death, there is a library, and within that library, the shelves go on forever. Every book provides a chance to try another life you could have lived, to see how things would be different if you had made other choices. Would you have done anything different if you had the chance to undo your regrets? And I was like, oh, okay, this is where we're at. This is the deep feels.
I knew we were done for.
And like, but this entire blurb just, I feel like, really resonated. So I really, and I was like, this is a good one. And I actually saw a lot of people quoting this specifically and saying that this was very profound for them. So Nora will be preserved from death until she decides how she wants to live. There are portals in the library that lead to all the lives she could have been living. Mrs. Elm explains that actions cannot be reversed within a lifetime, but since Nora is no longer technically within a lifetime, she's able to see the in-between. So she's kind of like, I don't know, it's like that liminal thing between life and death. She's kind of like, she's there, but she's not there. Mrs. Elm hands Nora a book, which is the source of all her problems, and the answer to them, which is known as the Book of Regrets, which seems dark and ominous, and it gives her the bad feels when she holds it. Mrs. Elm, nope. Mrs. Elm asks Nora to pick something she would have done differently, and she would find the book that leads to that life. And then if Nora happens to feel unhappy in this life, she'll come back to the Midnight Library. So she has to kind of feel a sense of disappointment. And if once she feels that, she can't, it like automatically rips her back into the library. But if she seems content, she can stay in that lifetime. However, if Nora loses the will to carry on, it will affect her root life or her original life, which could ultimately lead to her death.
High stakes.
High stakes. High stakes. So now we're going to go on the journey of all the lives that Nora chooses. And there's a lot of them. Like
a zillion.
So many. Obviously, the book only goes into detail on 6 or 7 of them, but he details all these other lives that she did. And I was like, this is very creative. This is more than I would have imagined. The first life that Nora chooses is one where she marries her ex, Dan. Dan is a real fucking asshole.
Dan.
That's all I'm gonna say. In this life, she discovers that her and Dan did in fact open up a pub, which wasn't Nora's dream. It was Dan's dream. And a big theme throughout these lives that she chooses, you quickly realize that Nora is going to lives that weren't ultimately her decision. She was kind of living the lives for the other people and what their dreams were. And so she starts with Dan. And Dan ends up being an alcoholic in this life and does not appreciate Nora. Like I said, he's a real big dick. He ends up hooking up with someone when he's drunk. Because then you have to remember, Nora, when she enters this life, she has no idea what has happened the past, however, what is she? She's in her mid-30s or something like that. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't know what has led her to this point. So she's just kind of thrown into this life, and she kind of has to wing it and figure out who people are. So Dan's like, oh, I saw you talking to Erin. How did that go? And she's like, oh, it was fine. He was like, really? She has to kind of gauge people's reactions now, and she quickly learns that.
Which is the most disconcerting part of this book is that she does have to relearn all this stuff. And it does kind of, not in this life, but in some of the other lives, it kind of not damages, but it does have an effect on her current relationship because they're you're being so weird. You don't remember anything about our life together. So it's it just adds a whole nother element to whatever life you choose. Yeah.
As Nora's in this life for maybe 3 hours. I feel like she wasn't here very long. She reflects back on her relationship with Dan, and then she remembers that he tended to belittle her or make her feel like her dreams didn't matter. And so she's quickly reminded of why she didn't stay with him in the first place. And even though she tries to enter this life where, oh, maybe if I had stayed with him and we followed his dreams, I would have been happier. And she's clearly not. So she leaves. Mm-hmm. And when she returns, Mrs. Elm asks her what she's feeling, and Nora explains that she still wants to die. That was entering one life was not enough to make her want to stay on this planet.
Yeah, it was not a good enough life.
No. So Mrs. Elm continues to explain that was only one of her possible lives, and she convinces Nora to try again. So Nora's like, all right, well, the next life I want is one where Voltaire is kept indoors so he doesn't die. It's well, if he's an indoor cat, he can't go outside and get hit by a car, right? So therefore, he would still be alive in this life. However, she enters the life, and Voltaire's dead. He was under her bed, dead. And so she's like, what the actual fuck?
Understandably, she's like, Mrs. Elm, you led me astray.
I know. And so when she immediately comes back to the Midnight Library, she's like, I said I didn't want him to die. And she's like, well, here's the thing, that was his time. When cats, and this is very true, when cats are ready to pass, they hide. Because they don't, they want to kind of be alone. So the fact that he did go under her bed, like, it was time for him to go. He had some kind of illness. And so Nora has to she comes to terms with the fact that no matter what terrible thing, like, it was still going to happen. And so she has this, one of her regrets of being a bad cat owner is erased, because Mrs. Elm is like, no, like, you rescued him. You gave him the happiest, like, last 3 years of his life. And so Nora's like, oh, okay, so, like, I did have an impact on somebody. Like, it wasn't all bad. And so she, like, realizes that no matter what she had done, obviously Voltaire is not, he's not immortal. He's still going to die at some point. The next life she goes to is Australia, which I believe is when she ended her relationship with Dan. Izzy was like, oh, come to Australia with me. She was going to go take photos of whales or something. And so Nora, she wakes up and she's in this, she's in this beautiful place, and she's just swimming outside in what sounds glorious. It just, this little scene that she's explaining where she's at just sounded so idyllic. And I was like, I want to live here.
I was like,
wherever you are,
to Australia?
Can I go? And so she's like, oh, this is great. She's like, this feels like what I want to do. I feel happy. I'm swimming again. And then she goes to her apartment, and her roommate is not Izzy. It's some punk rock girl. and then she brings up Izzy, and she's like, what do you mean? And then Nora does some research, and she discovers that Izzy died in a car crash a month after coming to Australia. And so now her friend is just deceased in this life. So Nora's just batting 1,000 right now.
Seriously.
Every life that she enters thinking it's going to have a happy outcome, because she's thinking back on, like, the choices that maybe she should have made. And they're still leading to, like, these not great outcomes. The next life Nora goes to is one where she doesn't give up swimming, and she's very successful. So when Nora was younger, her dad really pushed her to be a professional swimmer, and, like, his dream was that she would become an Olympian. And so she's like, all right, so here we go again. Here's Nora living a life for someone else. This is not for her. And in this timeline, ironically, her dad is still alive. So in her root life, her dad had died when she was younger. And this is where Mrs. Elm becomes a pivotal role model in her life, because she was with Mrs. Elm when she found out. And Mrs. Elm was basically someone for her to lean on in that moment. And so she kind of stands out to... It makes sense why she's the person that Nora would choose to be, like, the librarian of the Midnight Library. And in this life, she also has a close relationship with her brother, which is fractured in real time, and they haven't spoken in 2 years. And the reason why they haven't spoken in 2 years is because they were in a band called The Labyrinth, which I liked that name. I really liked that. And she backed out of a record deal because she was having, like, panic attacks, and her mental health wasn't able to, like, handle the extent of what this career path would lead for her. So her brother was pissed because that was, like, his meal ticket. And so that fractured their relationship. And, Nora kind of has, like, this pivotal moment where she speaks to her dead dad, which, like, can you imagine? Like, you just go to, like, a new life and your dad is just alive and well. And you're like, I thought the last time I spoke to you was the last time I was ever going to speak to you. Like, it's just kind of, like, unreal.
And because they had such a complicated and sometimes fraught relationship.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait, am I going to have another chance to do this over?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then, like, she quickly realizes, like, again, this isn't the life that she wants to live. Now this is kind of, a life that she's living that's not her own. And it's very solitary and, like, lonely. So even though, like, her dad is still alive and she has a close relationship with her brother, it's not necessarily good. So the next life she goes to is the Arctic. because one of the jobs that her and Mrs. Elm had talked about was her being like a glaciologist, which is the coolest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Right?
I'm like, oh, this is so fun. So she enters this life, and after almost being eaten by a polar bear, which that would throw me.
Like you said, she is striking out with the first couple because people are just dying left and right. And then, and now you're having a near-death experience.
I know. But because she almost gets eaten by this polar bear and like, you know, almost dies, she realizes that she doesn't actually want to die, which is obviously a huge revelation. And after much reflection about her own life and her parents' lives, Nora comes to this realization and admits that she had loved her parents more than she ever knew. And in that moment, she forgives them completely for any and all of their digressions. Because she kind of lives in this regret where both her parents are deceased, and she kind of feels like she failed them both. But she realizes that no, she didn't. You know, everyone has their own failures, and life doesn't always turn out how you expect it to. And so she just kind of has to essentially live with that. And so she does. She kind of becomes at peace with it. She meets a man named Hugo on the ship, and Hugo is like, I know what you're doing, girl. I know what you're doing. You are jumping through lives. And she's like, what?
Crazy.
She was like, huh? And he, like, I believe he said he calls them, like, jumpers or
sliders.
He's like, you slide in and out of lives. And he admits that he also, you know, he tells her, I also visit lives that are not my own. And he would explain everything to her. And what's funny is that his library is actually a video store that's, like, run by his uncle. So it's like everyone's midnight library is a different experience and place.
I love that.
And then they go into this whole thing about quantum physics that lost me a little bit because science. I'm like, I love science, but I am not mentally able to handle it. But it was actually a pretty cool scenario. And that they're in a quantum physics universal wave function. Whatever those words may mean to anyone listening, congratulations on being smart. And because I was like, you lost me, but I'm going to pretend I know what's going on here. I feel like I'm in like an Avengers movie. Like, it's crazy. And then basically he says that there are an infinite number of divergent parallel universes. So all of these lives are kind of coexisting, just parallel on each other. So even though Nora is technically in her root life, there's this scenario that she is also living many, many other lives. Alternate universes, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells her that he has lived 300 lives. Sir. He's like a vampire. Like, he's just living. Like, 300 lives? That's, like, insane. And then Hugo also kind of... He makes it seem like this is not the first time he's actually met Nora. This is her first time meeting Hugo, but it's not his first time meeting her. And he's like, you know, we're like in each other's lives at some point. And so she's like, okay. And then so since she feels like this connection to him, obviously, because like he is having the same experience that she is. And so they have sex. She's heavily disappointed. And immediately she ends up back in the library because she's disappointed about this sexual experience she just had with Hugo.
Which, like, I'm sorry, but you would think this man has lived all these lives and he couldn't have picked up some tips?
Oh my god. She was like, all right, yeah, let's you know, we're gonna have sex. And she's just like, that sucked so bad that I went back to the Midnight Library because I was that disappointed. That's like literally what happens.
That's like the worst level of rejection. I literally didn't want to live this life anymore.
Like, you gave me nothing. And therefore,
negative nothing.
I must leave. Because I don't ever want to relive this. Anyways, the next life she goes to is where she does move forward with being a famous rock star. And she's doing an interview with a podcaster. And there's another quote I took directly from the book, which is also like me. Like, I'm like, all right, instead of typing this, I'm going to speak into my phone, which was, I'm like, this is the greatest idea I've ever had in my life. Why have I never done this before, by the way? I'm like, I can just read it directly. So she says, every second of every day, we are entering a new universe, and we spend so much time wishing our lives were different, comparing ourselves to other people and other versions of ourselves, when really lives contain degrees of good and degrees of bad. So this was another one where I'm like, holy shit, this is resonating with me. And, you know, so she enters this life again with the thought of her brother Joe. And she's like, all right, let me move forward with continuing with the labyrinths. And when she starts the life, she's with Robbie, who was another band member, who's also kind of a dick. And I like low key was like, oh, are they going to end up together? But they don't, thank God.
Oh, yeah.
And because at first I was like, is he going to be like some kind of like romantic interest for her? But he wasn't. And, you know, she brings up Joe, and she's like, well, where's Joe? And then he kind of like gives her a weird look, and he was like, they're probably like schmoozing the press. And so she's like, oh, okay, so maybe in this life he's also like a manager, because that was what he was to her when she was a professional swimmer, when she kept up with that career. And so she's like, oh, okay. And then she ends up like meeting this lady, Joanna, who is her manager. And then she finds out that actually in this life, her brother Joe had died of an overdose, because the lifestyle, he couldn't handle it. He was partying and like doing drugs all the time. So then he ended up losing his life. When she initially starts in this life, she thinks it's everything she wants. She's famous. She has all this love and admiration. She apparently has this really badass house in like LA that she doesn't know what it looks like, but it sounds great. You know, so she's like, okay, this is a life. Like, this is it. I can live in this life. This is what I want. And then she was like, never mind. This is not, I was wrong. Like, now I don't have my brother Joe. Like, I'm just continuously entering these lives, hoping to repair what I'm missing in my root life. And it's just all kind of,
and especially this life specifically, the entire reason she would pick this life would be for Joe. And then Joe's not even there to enjoy it.
Exactly.
And I didn't, like, you condensing it like this, I didn't realize how many of these lives had a death right off the bat. Oh my God, they were
depressing. Yeah, that's why, like, death is definitely a heavy premise, like, in this book. So she admits to Mrs. Elm that it was becoming too painful and that she didn't want another life, because now she's entering all these lives with this thought process that, oh, there's something better out there for me. And then they're kind of just all of their lives full of like turmoil and death. And she was like, do I do anything right in my life? Like, she kind of has like this realization that I don't think I'm ever meant to be happy. And so when she's having this disassociation from being unhappy, the library has like this reaction where it like begins to shake, and it basically feels like it's going to fall, you know, unto itself. And Mrs. Elm is like imploring Nora to remember how she felt before the polar bear. You know, like you said, you wanted to live. Like you need to bring yourself back to that moment of wanting to still live. Like there's still so much out there. And that was when Nora comes to the realization that all the lives that she has been choosing, they're all someone else's dream. They're not her own. So she requests what's called a gentle life. And in this life, she works at an animal shelter. So it's this wholesome, cute little thing. And she's dating a young man named Dylan who loves dogs. He has like 1,700 dogs. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so she's in this life and she thinks that, okay, this is nice. But then, like, ironically, in this life, you know, she finds out, she begins to think about Mrs. Elm in these future lives now that she's entering. And I believe it was in this one that she had died, or she was in like a nursing home, but I think in this one she might have died as well. And so, you know, she doesn't necessarily feel that happy in this life, but she's kind of like accepted that. And she has like this cute moment where like she's cuddling the dog and she's like, you know, goodbye, whatever your name was. Like, it was so nice knowing you. And then she just like immediately goes back to the library. And so she begins to just try on many, many different lives. like so many. One, she owns a winery with her husband, and there were just so, I couldn't even list them. I was contemplating it, and I was like, we would be here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But in trying on these lives, she's learning that undoing regrets was really a way of making her wishes come true. So as she's trying on the lives of things that she thought she did wrong or things she wishes she had done, she's now experiencing those things and realizing that either they weren't what she really wanted, or, okay, I see what this would have looked like. I'm good. Like, this isn't exactly what I want. I'm okay with going back. So she's just going back and forth, back and forth. And then the final life that she decides to visit is one where she ends up with this guy, Ash. And Ash is very important in the beginning. So Ash is the one who discovers Voltaire, in the street. He realizes that he's been hit by a car and that he's like not okay. And so he goes to Nora's door that night, and he was like, I believe your cat is dead. And he was so sweet to her. Like, he stayed with her, like he helped her bury him when she was like inconsolable. And the first time that she had met Ash was he had asked her out on a coffee date. So it was kind of like a serendipitous meet cute. But she was in a relationship with asshole Dan, so she just never accepted. And I think that even like when she broke up with Dan, I don't think it seems to me that she never felt in a place to like try to like rekindle that with Ash, because Ash was like the surgeon, and I think she kind of felt inferior to him, is kind of like the vibe I was getting. So in this life, she accepts the date. She accepts the coffee date, and they end up getting married, and they have a daughter together. Little old Molly. And also in this life, Nora and her brother Joe are on good terms. So she begins to feel like this is the life that she wants to live. And while she's not 100% feeling like it's it, she's feeling more and more content to be there, though. Like, she doesn't have this desire, this disappointment desire to leave. And because she's staying here for so long, she actually begins to remember aspects of her life that she had never actually lived. So now the things that had happened before she entered this life, it's kind of like entering her brain, and she's forming memories that she wasn't physically there when they happened, but now this Nora in this life, it happened to her. So now she's beginning to remember those things. And so she decides she wants to go visit Mrs. Elm because she remembers the nursing home that she was in when she was in that gentle life with Dylan. And as soon as she gets there, she unfortunately discovers that Mrs. Elm had died 3 weeks before. And so now we reach this point where, as Nora's driving back home to Ash and Molly, she begins to feel the disappointment, and she can feel herself being pulled to back to the Midnight Library. And she doesn't necessarily want to go back, but you can also tell that she feels like she's a stranger in this life. That, like, even though like this is like the perfect life for her, or so it seems, it's not really. Because even though this life has so many wonderful aspects, she can't connect as much as she would want to on an emotional level.
It feels too perfect.
Yeah.
And then the fact that she still remembers the library, because Mrs. Elm said, once you're in the life you're staying in,
you won't remember the library.
Won't remember it.
It'll just be like this random dream that you had. And when she gets back home to Ash and Molly, she kind of has like this very small, time to just kind of like say goodbye and like feel it. And like, she doesn't want to go. Like, she really doesn't want to go. And like, as soon as she gets ripped back to the library, she begs Mrs. Elm to send her back to that life. And it's not possible. So basically, once you're in a life and you get pulled back, that book is kind of closed. Like, you can never re-enter that life. So if you obviously weren't content, so you're not able to stay there. And she was so convinced that was the life that she wanted to live, when in reality it wasn't. But it kind of helps her to come to like this realization that she doesn't want to die. And the library begins to collapse. like a very scary, like, moment of everything just falling around her. And, you know, like I had said, even though she thought that she had the perfect life in that world with Ash and Molly, she realized it was a carbon copy and it wasn't really a life that she had lived. And so she wants to go back to her root life, her original life. And Mrs. Elm can't really give her the answers on like how to get out of the library. Nora kind of has to like figure it out for herself. And so she tells Nora that she has to find an empty book. And once she found this empty book, it would help her return to her real life. And so Nora is fighting tooth and nail to get to this book. And she gets to it and she opens it and it's blank. So she's like, okay, obviously I need to write something in here. And everything she's writing, she's like, I want to go back. She's kind of using like descriptor words. She's using descriptor words. And so then she finally writes, I am alive. And like, that was like kind of like the magic phrase because she's stating something instead of just wanting something or like feeling like she wants something, but she's actually saying, no, like, I'm alive. And so she's brought back to her root life and she's on the verge of dying, and she's able to go to a neighbor and ask him to call an ambulance, and she's put in a psych ward, obviously, because she tried to kill herself. And they're probably like, this is like the perfect patient. She's like, I'm ready to go. Like, I'm fine. Like, listen, like, I know I tried to take my life, but listen, I want to live. Everything's great. Everything's great and dandy.
I'm ready to go back.
Yeah, exactly. And so her brother Joe ends up coming at her insistence, and they end up mending their relationship. Like, Joe is like, no, like, I've been an asshole. Like, I shouldn't, I went through my own mental health crisis, and I realized, I thought your panic attacks were based, men don't think that anxiety or shit is real. So he's like, I just kind of thought that whatever you were going through wasn't necessarily real. And he's like, I went through my own mental health crisis and I realized, oh no, like, this shit can also happen to men.
Shocking.
And so, yeah. And then, they end up fixing their relationship. Nora ends up teaching piano lessons. That's the career that she goes with. Because in actually one of her lives as well, which was like the last life too, which I think also caused her the disappointment. A student that she had been teaching in her root life, he was kind of heading down the wrong path. And so in this life that she was in, she wasn't teaching music. And so he didn't have someone, because the mom didn't have a lot of money, so she couldn't really afford. At that time, Nora was kind of like the cheapest option. And so because he didn't have that option, he became like a hooligan and was like robbing places and stuff like that. So she's also like disappointed in like, well, in the life that I was in, I actually was, again, she's realizing I did have an impact on someone's life.
Which, like, I get that there were other reasons that she had to leave that life, but I was like, you're gonna leave Ash and this perfect life for some hooligan? I know. And then she just goes and plays chess with Mrs. Elm. And I was like, it was just kind of like a full circle moment, because the book starts with Mrs. Elm, and, because the first part of the book is her in the library with Mrs. Elm when she's a child, and they're talking about her being a glaciologist and like swimming and everything, and then she gets the notification that her dad died. So like, it's starting on such a heavy note, and then it ends with like her and Miss Elm playing the game of chess. And, Nora realizes that Mrs. Elm is going to win. And she kind of, again, has like this pivotal moment where she says, then Mrs. Elm says, well, that's the beauty, isn't it? You just never know how it's going to end. And so Nora's like, she's like, yep. And she's like smiling at the pieces. And she's like, she's thinking about her next move. Whereas in the beginning, she was thinking about ending it. So like now obviously the book does like a total turnaround. And now you have Nora, who is accepting where her life is at, and she's okay with it. And Mrs. Elm was just pivotal in that. Without her, like, she has no idea. This old lady has no idea that she was some character in an alternate universe in this, midnight library. And I also liked that in that last conversation, Mrs. Elm says, you know, I wasn't always the perfect mom. I wasn't always the perfect wife.
And she had her own regrets.
And it's like, Nora didn't know about that because she only knew Mrs. Elm as like this great person. But she's seeing that in her root life, she thought that she was doing nothing. But now she can go back and make a difference for people.
Exactly. So yeah, that was The Midnight Library.
This book fucked me up.
I know. So, my first question for you is, if you ended up in a place like the Midnight Library, how do you think you would handle it? Comma, would you want to see all the different outcomes that your life could have taken?
No. No. Because, well, Nora does end up living a lot of lives that she enjoyed and a lot of completely different lives, like, you know, completely different ends of the spectrum. But I feel like the scariest part of the first few lives is that any decision you make, like they talk about like the tree and the branches, any decision you make rewrites everything. It rewrites the whole universe. It rewrites your future. And it's like, the thought of having to choose the right time to go back to create this whole life that you want is like just so overwhelming. And it's like, the more you keep undoing it, the worse it keeps getting. And it's like a pulling a loose string, and it just keeps unraveling. So I feel like the idea of it, especially when she's like so overwhelmed by the, you know, just the whole prospect of it, and every life she's choosing isn't right. I just feel like that sense of just how overwhelming it is would be crushing. So I couldn't do it.
No, because it's like, you know, just because you can enter a new life doesn't, as Nora discovers, it doesn't necessarily mean it's better. And while some things might be better, other things could be worse. So it's like it's not like the things that are okay in your life now are going to be reflected back at you in these other lives. No, it's going to change everything. So as much as like life might suck now, you know, it's like, this is the path that I'm on. I just have to like enjoy it and just take it for what it is. Nora goes to, as we've seen, many, many different realities. You know, she's marrying her ex-boyfriend. She's studying glaciers, almost getting eaten by polar bears. Which alternate reality did you find the most interesting? Or alternatively, did any resonate with you more than others?
The most interesting was definitely the glaciologist, because that's just so random, and I would never think that in a million years. The resonating, I feel like, was probably where she does the swimming, and she does it to like preserve her relationship with her dad, to make him proud, to do what he wanted, but then it ends up, like you said, being so isolating, and she's not really able to get any joy from it. And I think that is so relatable, just like, because when I was younger, I cared so much about like what other people thought or what my parents thought or whatever. And you just see that that's never going to be fulfilling, living for someone else. And we see that, like, we know that, but it's one thing to know it.
Yeah.
And then to actually live it.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. I think for me, the one that affected me the most, or like resonated with me the most, was the last one that she had with Ash, and it was because of Molly. And I was like, you know, so Nora enters this life, and this isn't the first time either that she's like a mom. Like, she was a mom in other lives, but you know, this one kind of is a little different because she has that emotional connection with Ash prior to entering this life. And you know, the whole concept of Molly, it's just, in reading that, I felt my own regret for Nora in this life, because she didn't get to experience the actual feeling of creating Molly, of going through childbirth, of going through those first few years of her when she needs her the most. And so she's, again, just kind of thrown into this timeline where she's Molly is who she is now, and so Nora doesn't really get to realize how much she affected her trajectory. And I don't know, like, that was just sad for me, especially like being a mom. I'm like, you know, you don't realize on how much you actually miss out on. But it was like her relationship with Molly, though, was also alternatively so cute. Like when they're playing the game and Nora's asking her questions to try to figure out what her life looks like, you know, and Molly's like, am I happy? You know, and Molly's like, yeah, you know, and Nora's like, well, do we yell? And she was like, only like when you're tired, and you always say sorry after. So Nora's like seeing like, oh, she's able to have healthy relationships and she's not living the same life her parents did. So, you know, while it has its sad moments, it also has its positive things, because I think through Molly, Nora is realizing how good of a person she is, and that she has the capacity to be happy and to not live in the shadow of her parents and what they did.
And it was also, I completely agree, because when I was reading this, I'm like, and I'm not a mom, so it's obviously more amplified for you, but it's like the fact that she missed out on not only Molly's life, but her entire relationship with Ash. And he's like such an amazing father, such a supportive partner. They get along so well. And it's like, she doesn't have all those memories of them falling in love and them building this life together. And then on the flip side, it feels like she's almost more appreciative in some ways because of that. Like, especially when she takes Molly to the park and they're just playing and playing and playing. And it's like, okay, so in this alternate life, was Nora exhausted and worn out and just needed a break? But she's able to appreciate Molly in a different way. So it is kind of,
and that's,
I don't know, it's like a flaw in the parallel universes.
Well, yeah, but like everything is, but this is kind of the whole point of the story also, I think, is that it shows everything is flawed. Like, nothing is ever going to be perfect. Nothing is ever going to work out how you ever wanted to. And you just kind of have to learn to accept that. And, you know, she's not, while this life on the outside seems like the perfect scenario for her to stay in, and this is the longest life that she stays in, by the way, like the final life that she's in is the one that like she's there for a very, very long period of time. But like we said, she still remembers the Midnight Library, so she's actually not fully content. And it's because it's a carbon copy of a life that she could have had in her root life. And I really feel like it helps bring her to the realization of that she could have this if she tries, and that it's not fair. And I think she even says that the author kind of has like this little tidbit where Nora realizes that it's not fair for her to be living in this life because she's taking it away from this Nora's lives, like that universe is that Nora's universe life, because now she's kind of, you know,
like an intruder.
She's an intruder. And that's why she ends up going back, because she realizes that while, yes, that is perfect, it's not fair to her, it's not fair to Ash, it's not fair to Molly, and it's not fair to that Nora.
Hugo is the villain of this story, because he's out here ruining all the other Hugo's lives, and he sucks in bed. So you know what?
Yep. Exactly.
Need I say more?
All right, and so every time Nora goes to one of these realities, there's usually a lot of good, but always something bad, like we said. Whether it's her brother dying in the Rockstar storyline, or her mother passing away alone, which is not one we talked about, but, you know, when Nora was in the swimming lifeline, where she kept up with it, while her dad was still alive, her mother ended up dying alone, whereas in her root life, she was with her mom, and her mom passed. So now she kind of lost that experience. And so she feels guilt about that. So what do you think the author was trying to kind of say with how each of these concepts had huge consequences, which, like, I feel like we kind of like touched on a little bit, that like, even though she's trying to fix her current life, something negative happens. that she has the power over of changing.
And I think because when you think of the concept of the Midnight Library and when she first gets there, it's like, oh, I'm able to choose my perfect life where I'm going to be happy. I'm never going to think about dying. And like in every one of her lives, it's a common theme that she's looking if she's on antidepressants or not.
Yeah, I know.
But it's just like, and that's how she gauges how happy her life is. Like, babe, maybe you're just not medicated. Anyway, so the whole fact of no matter what, you're never going to have the perfect life. And even though you could be chipping away at some of those regrets in your book of regrets, there's still going to be other things that are going to make your life worse. But with every life that she goes through, she's realizing that those regrets don't have to affect her anymore because things would work out the way they're meant to work out anyway.
Yeah, and I feel like what the author's trying to get across is like kind of what you said. It's like, you know, you're never going to be fully happy, and you know, you choosing to change, it's like a butterfly effect. You choosing to change something in your life is essentially going to fuck up something else in somebody else's life. So you kind of just have to roll the punches of your root life and just kind of go with what comes, and only you have the power to change the trajectory. And so you need to kind of flip your thinking and make decisions that could change what you're so upset about. And so, and instead of just jumping from life to life to find the perfect fit, you know, there's always going to be something wrong because that's just how it is.
Because then in those lives, you can't go back and change anything.
No.
You just have to deal with the good and the bad.
Yeah, exactly. Throughout the novel, Nora realizes how people blamed her for their own shortcomings. So, like, you know, Dan with, like, the pub, Joe with the band, her dad, you know, and that in the different realities she chose that, like I said, she was hoping for a better outcome for her loved ones. Those first few lives that she was trying on were not for her. They were for past loved ones in her life. And so when Nora realizes this, like, it's such a big significance because it, you know, it helps her move forward into finally choosing, you know, these lives. So what would be the final straw for you? Like, how many lives for other people would you choose to try to change before you finally realize, fuck all them, it should be me?
Girl, you know it'd only be like 1 or 2 for me. No, that's not true. I, like most women, do have people-pleasing tendencies. I do think about others first, even when they're not sharing that same courtesy to me. I mean, I was in an 11-year relationship where I was not the priority.
Yeah. So
I would like to think I'm better than that now, but
you're learning. That's the whole point. And that's like, I think that's like that example that you just gave right there is the whole significance of what this book is about. That no matter what you did in the past, you can't change the past, but you can change the trajectory of your life going forward. And like, you ending the relationship shows how strong you are to try to change your life to make it look better than what it is now. Like, you're trying to find yourself that perfect life. And instead of just giving in and just sticking with what you know because it seems easiest, you're taking the harder route to change it. And I think that's like legitimately the whole point of this book.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think most people's journey would be similar to Nora's. Like, the first few, the ones that they really dive into, are ones where she is learning these life lessons. And then the ones that they don't really go into, but she just lists all the lives that she's lived, then it's kind of like, not for fun, but those are the ones where she's
just trying things on. Like,
exactly.
It's like she's going into a store and just trying different outfits on, just seeing what fits best. Like, it's literally what it is.
Yeah. So it's a balance between, okay, so now I realize that I'm the one who has to make me happy. I can't live my life for other people, but while I'm here, let me just see what could make me happy.
Exactly.
And then she realizes that even when she's living for herself and she's living all of those, you know, random lives where she's successful, not successful, poor, not, you know, kids, no kids, whatever, she still is missing.
She's still chasing that happiness.
Exactly.
Like, she's still chasing something. So clearly, no matter what she's looking for in these lives, she's still not finding it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because she doesn't know what it is, which again is the point of the book. Like, it just, you truly don't know what you want until you have it. But even when you have it, how do you know that that's it?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and then at the end of the day, the only decision she really had to make was that she didn't want to die. That was the only decision. And then once she gets back to her root life, she's like, okay, now I got to get my shit together and realize that I can choose my own happiness and I can make myself happy. But at the end of the day, all she needed to figure out was whether she wanted to live or die.
Yeah. And I think that that's what a lot of people, like me especially, that like with having like a mental health illness, like we debate that not every single day, but we debate that a lot throughout our lives. They're like, well, my life doesn't look perfect, but do I really want to end it all? And it's like, you come to this realization, like, no, because then I would leave, you know, for me now, especially, it's like, okay, well, I'm leaving behind something that I've created and brought into this world. And that's not fair to them. It's not fair to the people that love me and that like want me in their life. It's not fair to my husband. It's not fair to my friends. It's not fair to my mom, my sister, my dad can fuck off. But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, there's so many people that you have to like really consider that. And so Nora was at the lowest point of her life where she thought that no one would care if she left. And so, you know, and people get to that point where they feel like they have no one.
Yes. And then it's like, once she actually looked around and realized, oh, all it took to get back have this relationship with my brother was to reach out to him. When she realizes that her next door neighbor cared about her and was worried about her, and like the stupid piano kid that she was changing his life. Like, the fact is, she was always
realize the impact that you have on someone else's life.
Exactly.
Because it's not front and exactly, because it's not front and center, it's not in your face. And then, you know, because I feel like I berate myself a lot when I'm feeling low, because I'm like, Jesus Christ, like my life could be so much worse. You know what I mean? But when you're that low, you just can't see past it. You just can't see past the fog until, like, you know. So the people that pull themselves out of it especially on a daily basis, like, they deserve so much credit, because it's not easy. And like Nora is the epitome of that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what mental illness is literally your mind working against you, which is, you know, it's the only thing that's supposed to be working for you. And it's literally trying to destroy you. So it takes so much extra effort. And even if, you know, you can stop and look around and say, look at my life, look at my family, my friends, all this stuff. When you're that deep, you can convince yourself that none of that matters. You can convince yourself that even though they say they love you, they don't really love you. Even though they show it, they don't. Like, it can just get so deep and so dark. And a lot of times, you know, when people get to rock bottom, sometimes it obviously does not work out and they do end their own lives. But a lot of times they do get to that rock bottom and it's like, okay, this is enough. Like, I need to figure out how to get out of this hole, because I either am going to die or I'm not going to keep living like this.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Also get a pet, but then it could die.
No, because the pet dies and then you're just like sad again.
Yeah. That's the only thing I would go back to. I'd bring Oreo back.
And here's the thing. The journey that Nora took was predictable. Like, I knew how it was going to end, but it didn't make me feel like I wasn't bored with it, you know, and it didn't, you know, because I had seen a few people, their gripes about, well, this was predictable and like I knew it was going to happen, like, but it's like, okay, but then you're not really considering her journey, or you're not dissecting it as much as you should, because you then realize how much of a different person she is by the end of this book. And okay, if that makes it predictable, then okay, whatever. Like, but like, no, like, she had this crazy journey through this magical world that doesn't really exist. And she had the opportunity to pass through this world, which ultimately saved her life.
I think if you're just reading it for plot, 100% it could be disappointing because it is predictable. But I think that if you fully embrace books like this, like we did with The Measure and like with a couple of other ones we've done this, where it's like, if you actually think about how this fiction book can apply to your life. And yes, it'll make you have an existential crisis, but it'll actually make you think about your own mortality. Like you said, it's a bigger, you're missing the point of the book. Like there's a bigger point of this book. It's not just the plot. There's a lot more messages in here, because at the end of the day, did I think Nora was the best character in the world? Did I think that this was the best book in the world? No, but it made me think about so many things and made me reflect, which is what we want from our books.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that this is what his books do, so I really want to read the rest of his stuff, because especially knowing that he has a depressed, anxious mind, that's it comes through. Mm-hmm. Like I related to it so much because I'm like, oh, these are things I've thought and felt, so like it like makes sense, and I feel like in reading this book too, in the current state of the world that we continuously talk about and just how hard things have been feeling, this book makes me reflect on it and kind of makes you realize you just have to, as hard as it is, we have to live in the good as much as we possibly can, even though things are kind of not great. Mm-hmm. And the trajectory of the state of the world right now is very depressing and just seems like it's getting worse and worse every day. So you kind of have to just like live in your own little bubble, and it's okay to live in your own little bubble sometimes. Like you don't need to feel like you need to constantly be fighting for everything. Like it's okay to just kind of take a break and just be with yourself for a little bit.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, we talk about it a lot because of everything that's going on and because of how dark it is. Not only do we need to sometimes completely disconnect from that so that we're not constantly depressed and fearful, but we also need to be realistic and realize that life as we know it could change very soon and in a very horrible way. So if we can enjoy it while we can, and if we can set ourselves up for our relationships, our friendships, and that type of happiness for now, this has definitely made me realize just how short life is, because at any moment it could be taken, and not like, oh, I could die, but it could be taken from me. And that's just so fucking depressing. But once you get over the depressing part, you're like, okay, now I need to do something about it and enjoy any moment I can.
Exactly. And that was like the final question was like, what is, like, in your own personal opinion, what's truly fulfilling in life? And for me, it's the people that I'm choosing to be in it. Because the people that I'm surrounding myself with are the ones that give me the will to live. They make me feel happy to be here. They make me feel like I have purpose, especially being the Cancer that I am. I feel things so deeply, and so knowing that people need me, it's a nice boost to my ego. 100%. I like being needed. That's been my MO for the longest time. So, it's not being famous. It's not having a shit ton of money. It's not having everything you want. Because that you see the people that have everything they want, they're probably the most unhappy and ungrateful people in the universe. It's just really just surrounding yourself with things that bring you a modicum of joy.
I mean, the money would help.
Of course it would.
Because I'd rather be sad on a boat with my money. But no, I completely agree. I think for me, it's because I have spent so long kind of, I've been living like Nora and living for other people for a long time. Yeah. And even though I've always been an independent person like myself, I have made myself live for other people. Other people have not made me do that. You know what I mean? So
it's been your own choices. Yeah,
exactly. So I think just like that independence and working towards my own goals and knowing that I have friends and family that support me and that are going to be there if I fall, that are going to be there if I need them, is like makes everything so much different. And I think this means that we're growing up.
We're evolving.
Hate it.
It's evolving in our trajectory of life.
hate it.
But yeah, that's why life is legitimately it's short, and we should live it with the people we want to live it with and do the things that we want to do, and don't take anyone's bullshit.
Well, I've already got that one. I'm not taking nobody's bullshit ever again.
Anything else you wanted to hit on, or should I get to the ratings?
Let's get to the ratings.
All right, so today we are rating out of 5 books of regret.
Oh, God.
Or non-regrets.
Whenever I start to think about the Book of Regrets, I get so overwhelmed, and I'm like, can you imagine?
You know, there's going to be that one time of when I, like, said something stupid in class. It's going to be, like, you know, it's going to be front and center.
Well, and then the fact that she starts reading it, and then she basically has a panic attack, and she needs to force herself to close it so that she doesn't, like, absolutely get crushed by her regrets. I had a hard time rating this one because as a book, like we said, the plot, the characters, like, I liked it. Did I love it? No. But then after reflecting on it, I'm like, I loved the message. I loved the concept, his writing. I hate/love when a book makes me feel this way. So I'm going to give it 4.5 books of regret. I really loved that in every life there was a lesson, like especially the one with Voltaire, where she realizes that, you know, I have this huge regret, and sometimes we'll go through our entire lives feeling like if we had changed that one thing, then everything would be different. And the fact that she gets that resolution of knowing that it wasn't her fault is like such a blessing. And so I think that was really cool. Like, yes, there's the lessons of, oh, just because you're in another life doesn't mean your brother's alive and your dad's alive, blah, blah, blah. But also those other lessons of just, like, I just liked how it was multifaceted in that way.
Yeah.
And it definitely goes with this thinking, which I have always felt this way, and I strongly, strongly believe it, that we are responsible for our own happiness. And, like, aside from privileged circumstances, et cetera, we, with what we are given or what we can control, are responsible for our own happiness. And whether that's, you know, taking care of our mental illnesses or distancing, you know, setting up boundaries or whatever, I just really loved that at the end of the day, that was the message, that nothing had to change in order for her to be happy besides her wanting it.
Yeah, that's all it is. It comes down to her decision to want to live and to want to change. You know, and that's just kind of like the whole premise of, like, you are the only one that can change your life and make your decisions. No one else can do it for you. Because as much as someone can influence your life and help or harm you, you know, that's not enough to fully change it. Like, you are the only one that could do that.
Until they take our rights away. Anyway, what did you rate it?
I gave it 5 out of 5. Like, there was not one thing that I disliked about this book. There was not one part of it that I felt was not needed. You know, and it's like, granted, yes, this might have been a predictable journey, and this might have been kind of simplified. And I know it wasn't a challenging book in the sense of other ones we've read, and it was definitely an easy read. But the message of it was just very profound, and I really appreciated the concept and the point. And especially now, reflecting back on it and reading about the author after I read it and knowing what his situation is, I'm like, oh, it makes so much more sense. And there's just there were so many quotes I could have pulled from this book, because the writing that this author was showcasing, while it may seem predictable and simple, was not. Like, it's just, if you
especially
really,
when you isolate it, like the quotes that you read, I was like, oh man.
You know, if you take it pull it from that moment and you just really sit with that, and you deeply, deeply ingrain it into your bones, like, you realize how profound he is, and how strong of a book this is, and what it means. And I think that people who are currently in the middle of a mental health crisis could really benefit from reading this book, because it helps you put other things into perspective. Mm-hmm. And it helps you see that, okay, yeah, your life could be different, but doesn't mean that it could really be a good different.
I'm so happy we read this, because truly,
yeah,
I had no idea what it was about.
When I went into
time travel. I was like, huh?
I went into it like blind, because like I didn't really know. I just know that this was a super popular book that people were reading, and I was like, oh, okay, like I'll read it. And and of course I started, and I was like, oh no, it's British. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it. I was like, oh no, actually, okay, I really like it, because obviously the way that, as I'm sure that British people feel when they read American novels, the connotations and everything's different. But it was good. It was really, really good.
I agree. I liked it. Good pick, Heather.
Thanks.
I'm gonna go cry now.
I know.
I didn't cry while reading, but
now we're gonna read it, and then our next review is on cannibalism. Anyways.
Can you guess whose pick that will be?
Which, by the way, as a little Easter egg, I'm listening to it, and the narrator is literally amazing.
Really?
I can listen to his voice all day long. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll listen to it, because I've read it before, but I'm gonna reread it.
It's not on Libby. Which, okay, maybe I understand why. But, like, you can't get it on Libby, and only 3 libraries in the area have it, and they're all, like, off the shelves. So I was like, it's not going to be here in time. So I was like, all right, let me just listen to it. And what's funny is I actually tried to listen to this book earlier this year, and I couldn't get into it. Mm-hmm. And so I was a little nervous about starting the audio up again. But, and I was like, oh, wait, no, this is actually, like, I like the guy's voice, and I'm able to kind of, and I guess now that I have a purpose to actually fucking read it, like listen to it, I'm like, I have to get this done. I'm able to kind of like, get into it.
Yeah. I, another little Easter egg. We're going to be talking about politics in that episode. Shocker.
Yeah.
When do we ever talk about politics? Anyway. Okay.
Anyways, that's all we have for you today.
Too much, as usual.
If you like what you heard and we haven't made you depressed, please make sure to follow, subscribe, and rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you listen to us on. If you have any book recommendations or questions for us, you can email us at fullybookedcafpod@gmail.com. Also, be sure to follow us on TikTok and Instagram at fullybookedcafpod to see our upcoming reads. Thanks for checking us out, and remember,
life is always worth living.
Oh. That's cute.
No, that was terrible. If you need us, we're fully booked. Okay. We're fully booked figuring out how to live our lives.
Goodbye. You are the weakest link. Goodbye.